What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Before we get into anything really too serious here, I do want to go ahead and say real quick, I want to thank everyone, both across social media, the Twitters, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, the Discords, all that good stuff, YouTube, even here, everyone who wished me a happy birthday today, December 10th. Thank you. I wasn't expecting it, didn't have to happen, but I just want y'all to know, because I know I'm not going to be able to get to everybody, but I wanted to just say how much that means to me as a human being and a person. And it means the world, and thank you so very much. With that said, let's talk about S.W.O.R.D #1 by Al Ewing and Valerio Schiti. And in this video, we're going to learn a lot about the inner workings of the newly reformed S.W.O.R.D organization under Abigail Brand and Magneto's leadership, and why one of his former acolytes has outgrown him, and why another can't even catch a break from him. Not only that, we're also going to learn why the mutants of Krakoa's hatred of Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, is problematic for the future of the cosmic Marvel universe. And S.W.O.R.D has uncovered something that is likely going to change the landscape of mutantdom in the cosmic spectrum of the Marvel Comics universe forever, and how it may have garnered the attention of one of Marvel's greatest villains. We're going to talk about all that and more right now. But first, wash your damn hands. And let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Right off rip, let's go ahead and talk about this. This is one of the things I really enjoyed about this book, is the vibe and the feel of this book. I never knew that I wanted a spacefaring X-Men comic in this vein. I never realized that I wanted it, because honestly, the X-Men being in space is actually one of my least favorite things that the X-Men have ever done. Like, a lot of people love it when the X-Men are in space. I'm one of those people who could not care less, and somehow Al Ewing made me a believer. He has made me a believer in this just on the strength of one issue alone. He has made me care about the X-Men being in space, and more importantly, he has created something that I think is the best thing that could have come out of this, and that is basically Mutant Deep Space Nine. This is what this is, and I'm so here for it. And man, it's great. We learn that, yeah, Magneto and Abigail Brand are running the S.W.O.R.D base. Now, yes, of course, Abigail Brand is the overall leader. Magneto is more in a oversight capacity. Abigail Brand is the station commander overall. She is also the one who pretty much has the last say, even though, yes, Magneto is of the Quiet Council. He is a founder of Krakoa, and though a lot of people do tend to forget, Abigail Brand is, of course, a mutant, even though it's not something that I think is ever really talked up a whole lot. People forget that she is, in fact, a mutant. Her mother, if I'm not mistaken, was a mutant. Her father was an alien. But one of the things that Abigail Brand is very quick to talk about in this comic that is, I think, of very big importance is the fact that, yeah, she's a mutant, of course. However, she doesn't work for Krakoa. She works for S.W.O.R D. S.W.O.R D is who she answers to. And more importantly, her scope of view is not just limited to mutants, because one of the things I thought was really interesting in this, and this is something that I think is going to be, something that's going to be a point of contention between herself and Magneto as this book goes forward, and I think will be probably one of the better dynamics on this comic going forward, is the fact that she talks about that she is a spacer. She views things in solar systems, not just one world, and that's kind of how she sees Krakoa. Krakoa, they view in one world, and she's kind of trying to get Magneto to see that S.W.O.R.D has to speak for Soul. And though Abigail Brand makes a great point about trying to view things in terms of solar systems and galaxies, as opposed to thinking about just one mudball, Magneto does make a very fine point that this is the future of mutantdom. This is a space program owned and operated by mutants now. And as he so eloquently puts, if S.W.O.R.D speaks for Soul, who speaks for S.W.O.R.D? And that would be the mutants. So right now, just in this comic alone, we kind of changed the dynamic of who is the overall governing body in this particular corner of the Marvel Comics universe's cosmic sector, and I think that's a much bigger deal than I think people are going to give it credit for. There are a lot of really good characters on this. I know I've never been like the biggest on like WizKid, but WizKid is is a very interesting character who I think is going to get a lot of, good airplay here. I think he's going to do really well on this team, and I think his stock may rise as a result of this. So I'm here for it. I want to see more of him, and I kind of like his power set and how they've gotten it to work with Krakoan biology. So basically, it's kind of created this whole new form of mutant technology, which, by the way, the mutant technology, not just, referring to Krakoa, but referring to the combination of mutant powers, is just a really awesome thing to think about. And like some of the things they're doing, like stuff that we've seen with the 5 and what we've seen in the pages, I think it was X-Men number 11, where Magneto combined his powers with Iceman and Magma. And I think there's a lot to explore here. I think we're going to see a lot more of it. They even kind of refer to, the earliest iteration of mutant technology being the fastball special between Colossus and Wolverine, and even going on to talk about how there are even more possibilities than we've ever imagined. That said, it is not all wine and roses on this team. Now, one of the things that we do see after we meet up with WizKid is we're introduced to the character Frenzy, who is a favorite of mine, and I really just want to point out real quick that I really appreciate that 2 of the characters that I picked for my all-black X-Men team are on this team. Frenzy is one of them, Manifold being the other, and I really appreciate the fact that they're actually giving Frenzy this opportunity to come in and be the ambassador for S.W.O.R.D, and it's just really awesome. We first see her, she is beating the brakes off of one Skrull on the ship, and that's Pybok, who, for those who don't know, Pybok is no slouch. I mean, for those who don't remember, that is the Power Skrull right there. I mean, he is no slouch. This guy has been around since 1991, Fantastic Four number 358, and the guy is literally getting the brakes beat off of him by Frenzy, cementing her power levels. I think that's the thing that a lot of people tend to forget about, is the fact that Frenzy is actually incredibly strong. She's always been kind of downplayed and not really given a whole lot to do, but they're letting you know right here, she can beat the brakes off Pybok. And I'm like, dude, I'm here for it. Also, that look, I mean, just you look at her in this shot, and I'm gonna go tell you right now, she looks like the auntie that's about to flirt with your best friend and change their life forever. But yeah, the thing with Frenzy though is that, Frenzy was once an acolyte, a member of the acolytes who worked as subordinates for Magneto back as early as X-Men number 1 back in 1991. And she was one of his most stalwart followers, and that's something she even brings up. The fact that she used to basically worship the ground that he walked on, but the fact that she's moved on from him because she's had to grow, she's had to learn that he is in fact, though, a powerful mutant, an amazing man, but at the end of the day, he's just a man. And the reason why this even comes up in the first place is because when Pybok and Frenzy are talking over the prospects of Hulkling, who you must remember is the emperor of the Kree Skrull Empire, coming to visit the station, Pybok brings up that there's an issue with that because of the fact that there's a rift now between the Kree Skrull Empire and the mutants of Krakoa because of Wanda Maximoff. You have to remember, Wanda Maximoff is Hulkling's mother-in-law because of Wiccan being her son. And this is problematic because the Kree Skrull Empire, because of their union, they are now at least equal in power to the Shi'ar Empire, which, for those who don't know, the Shi'ar Empire used to be the biggest galactic empire in all of Marvel Comics. There was none bigger, really, at any point in time, and now the Kree Skrull Empire has become equal to them at the very least. And because Wanda Maximoff has been considered persona non grata to the mutants of Krakoa, as Abigail Brand puts it, she's branded an enemy of the state, it's gonna make things a little difficult for Hulkling and Wiccan to want to do anything or be involved in anything that regards the mutants. And S.W.O.R.D would be one of them. And once again, this comes up because it kind of bears some talking about, even though I don't really like going back into it, but a lot of people forget that Wanda Maximoff was retconned into no longer being a mutant. One of the things you may remember, this goes all the way back to Uncanny Avengers Volume 2, number 4, back in 2015, where it was confirmed that the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were not the children of Magneto, but they were the creations of the High Evolutionary. So they are no longer Magneto's children, and this retcon, as well as her being responsible for the mutant decimation, it's a huge point of contention for Magneto. And he is not overly fond of the idea of her being welcome on the S.W.O.R.D base, or anywhere for that matter where mutants would be. Hence why Pybok recognizes that Magneto, for a man who can bend steel with a thought, doesn't really seem to be able to withhold or bend his own steel within himself, basically saying it's difficult for him to control the emotions that are worn on his face. But getting away from that and the whole encounter with Frenzy, another acolyte is also on the ship by the name of Fabian Cortez. Some of you may also remember Fabian Cortez from X-Men #1 back in 1991. Fabian Cortez being there is problematic for a lot of reasons. One, because he manipulated Magneto, using his abilities to heal a fatal wound that Magneto received from Wolverine, and basically using his powers to heal Magneto, but at the same time also manipulating him, and basically using the Acolytes to infiltrate Asteroid M and then ultimately destroy it. And he even betrayed his own Acolytes. It's one of those situations where right now, Fabian Cortez, he recognizes that he probably should be kissing Magneto's ring, and honestly, he's rightfully to do so. He is basically groveling at this point to Magneto, and Magneto wants nothing to do with him. But what's made even more funny about this is that when he sees the character Peepers, he immediately blows off Fabian Cortez and goes to go hang out with Peepers of all people. But it makes sense because you have to remember that way back in the day, he did recruit Peepers to be a part of the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants back in the 70s. It is one of those situations where I think that Fabian Cortez, he's going to spend a good portion of this comic trying to kiss up to Magneto and get him to no longer be angry with him over the events of the early 90s X-Men run up to Fatal Attractions. I think it's going to be a thing, and I'm here to see it. Now, one area where Fabian Cortez is actually incredibly useful is in the workings of the team's teleportation crew, which Manifold oversees. You see, Fabian Cortez is the executive producer, and he oversees the medical side of this base. However, he does actually help in the operating of the mutant technology, which once again is the inner workings of all of the characters' powers. Both Fabian Cortez, because he is a power booster, he is working in concert with WizKid, who is also kind of helping to oversee this mutant technology because his powers do directly interface with such things, and they are basically boosting the power of Manifold, who, let's go ahead and put it out right now, is already one of the most powerful teleporters in all of the Marvel Comics universe. He can teleport without error. He can go literally anywhere he wants throughout space and time. And right now, he has 5 other teleporters of great power underneath his wing in the way of Blink, Lina Chaney, Gateway, Vanisher, and Amelia Vaught. And we actually get to witness them using their abilities to travel in through some kind of a strange cosmic gateway. With armor giving each of them a personal force field, they travel to something that has a lot of different names. It calls itself the Mysterium Tremendum, the White Hot Room of Secret Fire, Excelso Preomnibus Alice, the Elemental Cosmic Heart, which is probably what it's going to be called. And what they do is they use their various abilities to compress this energy field, and what we realize is that it's something that we actually saw teased on the promotional picture for Reign of X. The thing that Storm was wielding in her hands, this is exactly what they found, letting us know that Storm is very likely going to be a part of this going forward. And when they return, they realize that what they brought back, whatever it is they found, this is going to be the future of mutant kind and everything going forward from here. But the thing is, they may just have garnered the attention of Dr. Doom, because we get a quote at the back of the book that says, "You have stolen fire from heaven to hold in your hands. How could I object? I have done the same myself, with one significant difference. I wore gloves. Be careful." Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Dr. Doom is going to try and interfere with their plans, whatever S.W.O.R.D is trying to do, but it does let us know that Dr. Doom is paying attention, and probably at some point, maybe he'll interact with them. I gotta admit, I love this team. I love everything I'm seeing here. I do find it interesting that when you look at the breakdown of this entire team, how this whole team works, we know that Cable is the security director and his sub-directors are Random and Risk, which I think is a very interesting combination right there. We know that, of course, as I mentioned earlier, Frenzy is the ambassador in over the diplomacy and negotiation sector of S.W.O.R.D, with Armor under her direct command, with Pybok as the galactic ambassador. And of course, we know that WizKid is the tech guy. He's over all of the engineering department of S.W.O.R.D, though he doesn't seem to have a team under, but something tells me he will wind up getting one. And we've already talked about Manifold's teleportation team and logistics, and of course, we've already talked about Fabian Cortez, who doesn't have a medical team under, but probably will soon. One of the things I do find interesting about all this is the fact that they each have X's listed next to certain characters, which it says that this team is assigned to Redacted X. Now, not every character has this designation, but WizKid, Manifold, Fabian Cortez, Armor, Risk, and Peeper have this designation. So I find it very interesting. Also, we notice that underneath observation analysis sector, we don't know who Peeper answers to. That has been redacted as well. So I'm very curious to see where this is all going. Al Ewing is, of course, a great storyteller. He's going to make all of this unfold in grand fashion. It's going to be fantastic. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But I gotta admit, I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with this cosmic heart, this elemental cosmic heart that they found. Whatever it is, whatever it does, I can't wait to see it. And honestly, I'm even more impressed with the idea of what we could potentially see with these characters and how they're going to interact with one another. I'm very curious to see how Abigail, Brand, and Magneto are going to get along over the course of this comic, and even more importantly, how Magneto, is he ever going to eventually warm up to Fabian Cortez? Is Fabian Cortez going to find a way to redeem himself in the eyes of Magneto? And what's going to go down between Magneto and Frenzy? Is Magneto ever going to get back Frenzy's respect? Not to say that she doesn't have respect for him, but it just seems like she just realized that he's not the type of person that you should just follow blindly. I don't know. I want to see where that relationship goes because I'm very interested in each of these characters for the most part. I think of everybody, WizKid was the one I was the least interested in, but he's growing on me just in the little bit that we've seen him in this one comic. But I don't know. You guys let me know. What do you think about S.W.O.R.D #1 by Al Ewing and Valerio Schiti? Wash your damn hands and sound off in the comments. So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome for you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I don't see how you didn't, do me a favor. Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell so you know when I post up. Also, feel free to go check out my Patreon, where if you chuck in $1, you can get early access to most of my videos up to a week early. And if you have time, make sure you swing by nerd901.com, where you can find more of my content as well as other amazing stuff. Anyways, until next time, I love you 3000 plus ultra.